Hello, this is a follow-up tuning for a Bechstein Model 3 grand piano that's 240 centimeters long, made in 1892. The client's happy with the piano. He's a piano teacher and musician, and we just want to choose or check the piano. It's gone slightly flat, so that's something we have to raise the pitch on all of the notes. But we've got a video of this before it was sold, so you might like to look at that and compare it. So the whole piano needs pitch raising. As you can see, the pitch here is about 438.5. I shall leave the piano at 442 as near as I can get it to that. I don't believe in turning too many pins later on. The idea is to, if you keep it at 440 exactly, you're turning the pins all the time. I prefer to have it a little bit sharper, and then when you come to tune it next time, hopefully not too many of the pins need turning, and it goes gradually down to a 440. I'm going to stop the video and put it on whenever I think there's something that might be interesting to listen to. As I go through, I'm going to mark any notes I think are a bit bright, or the opposite could be brightened up a bit, with chalk on the keys, so that I can go back to those at the end. So starting off with the A. Choosing the pitch is difficult. If I'm raising it all up, then it'll go down again. So, well, this isn't a very accurate device for tuning. This is just to set the pitch. I don't use this when I'm going along, although it's quite comforting to have something alongside you. There are much more accurate tuning apps. If you want to use an app, you can. Some of them cost a lot of money. This one is free. So setting it just above 444, I think. When it's going up about four or five beats, then I prefer to do them all roughly first. Otherwise, the effect of putting more tension on lowers the previous one. So we're going to look at A after we've done a few, just to see where A ends up. So I'm going to just pull them up without any wedges. A bit too high, that one, but be careful not to end up overdoing it. Lower that down a bit. The idea is to get the average tension so that it's roughly in tune. So I might not turn all three if we go too far on one of them. I'll save a lot of time later on. We see the A is now dropped to just above 442, which is what we're aiming for. So a very slight turn of the pin. We'll save time in the long run. Might not turn the third one at all if I feel the other two have gone a bit high. Notice the note brighter than the rest, so just going to mark there. When it's fine-tuned, it'll be more obvious. And having done this rough pitch raise, you can see the pitch has dropped, and possibly just below 442, which is fine. So anything between 441 and 442 is what we're aiming for. Now we can start fine-tuning, and I start with C's. Now we're having to turn every single pin, so I've mentioned to the client that in a way this next tuning, because we have to turn them all, is going to be less stable than the one after that, where we hopefully, if it's sharp, we won't have to turn them all to get them sharp. To pitch raise, we can perhaps turn 20% of them, which will make it a lot more stable. So that's not something you just have to, we can't avoid that really, because you're having to turn every pin to pitch raise. Go above the note and then put gradual pressure, slight pressure, to get it the unison right. put downward pressure on, you might want to hit it hard to make sure it stays in tune. It's stable. That's not quite perfect. At this stage you're trying to find how perfect you can get the unisons in, obviously. But just put the wedge in there again. I think that's as good as we're going to get it. Then now C to G, the fifth has to be very slightly flattened. How flat you make it depends on what temperament you're using. Equal temperament is going to be very, very slightly flat. If you want to do a Kellner temperament or Bach temperament, then maybe you want to go slightly flatter. Now I've tuned my temperament area, which for me is that F to this C. I want to use this F here as well, because on here the home keys make the home keys very slightly less beating than the distant keys, so that C, F and G, the thirds are slightly more in tune than they would be if it's equal temperament. That's just something personal, don't worry about that. If you're learning to tune, it's best to do equal temperament, but I tend to want the home keys to be slightly purer, so that does mean that the distant keys, F sharp and A flat particularly, is going to be slightly more distant, as it were. The thirds will beat slightly more because you want these thirds to beat less. So, but I've got another video about that, something that I'm trying to develop at the moment. But I'm very happy with the temperament. Do make sure the unisons are in, and if they go out at all, then you've got to obviously put them back in and then hit them hard to make sure they're stable. So I'm not going up from there, up front. This is a C sharp. Very slightly sharp, and you very slightly sharp as you go up to the top, because of the inharmonicity of the bass notes. Longer pianos like this don't need to be quite as sharp, generally speaking. If you're a tuner who'd like to comment on that, then it'd be very useful. I've gone up to the top treble. I'm going to now go down from the tenor right down to the bottom bass, checking fourths and fifths, as well as octaves, of course. Trying to make them as pure as possible. Come down to the bichords here, and I usually do two at once just to save time. Again, trying to get the fourths and the fifths as pure as possible, and if anything on the slightly flat side as you go down the bass end. In tune, I'd like to do it without stretching the octaves, but some tuners make them slightly flatter. If you'd like to comment on that, that would be useful. Because of bass strings, they're never quite so pure as treble strings. You end up with a little bit of vibrations that aren't quite pure. These are excellent bass strings though. So I haven't finished the tuning, just checking and marking notes that stand out, such as that one. That's just fine voicing. So initial voicing is done at the bottom of the hammer here before they're actually put on the piano, while they're in the packet, or rather put in a clamp, and just voice them quite deeply down here, and then less deeply as you go up on the shoulders. This is just fine voicing on the tips, and we can voice between the unicorder pedal. So now we just voice along the top surface gently, no more than 1.5 millimeters deep. So that's a follow-up visit to tune and check this Bechstein Model 3 grand piano, 240 centimeters long, sold in March, and it's now July, so it's gone slightly flat. It was pretty much in tune actually, but it was all flat, so we need to pitch raise it to 442. Obviously you have to turn every single tuning pin, and the reason for pitch raising to 442 is that the next time it's tuned, maybe only a third of the pins need turning, so that's going to be better for the piano, better for the fact that you're not turning tuning pins all the time, and also because they're obviously going to gradually get loose over a very long period of time. So that's one reason. The other reason is obviously so that the pianist has stable tuning for as long as possible. So I hope that's been helpful. Please do write any comments. We're all still learning, and I'm still learning. I find piano trays wonderful for just new experiences all the time. Thank you very much for listening.